Shalom, family. Shalom. Apologies for the silence. I just went into big zone mode. But we're going to start with some music and then we're going to jump right on in.
You haven't seen the sun in days.
After that commercial. But Shalom Barak fam. Shalom Barak. I'm going to go ahead and give me some water and stuff like that. Um, we're going to be jumping around a little bit. We're going to be in Second Esdras. We're going to be in the Bible, of course. And yeah, let's go ahead and get some. I'm gonna get into the zone, get some worship in, and then we'll get started for today. Shabbat shalom. I'm on. We're gonna play one more, and then we're gonna get right on into it. You might hear me moving around a little bit. I was vibing and getting deeper into this message, and really where we're gonna start from because that's the most interesting part. I'm telling you, that's the most interesting part. But trying to find a specific one I was listening to earlier that's really going to put us in the zone and in the way and in the place where we're going to be at today. Let me just go ahead and look it up the hard way again. But Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Great to see everybody coming in and ready to study with us fireside, as we say, that refining fire. Really just studying creation, studying the work of Abba, the Yavad or the Yah or the work of the Father being whole and holy in the spirit for the blood, water, and spirit for us to continue moving on in this walk. Mine. We're going to be starting in. I'm going to type in a second where we're going to be at. We're going to be in Genesis and Second Esdras. Praise Abba. Before I was listening to getting some word in, and Elder Anais, she was going through some scripture, and there was a scripture that came up that wasn't what she was looking for, but it was what I was waiting to hear, because we could correlate that as well. Apparently, Abba put that in the forefront of the mind for a reason. So, let's see. Let's do it like this, so I can stop my rambling. But yeah, all praise. We're going to be in Genesis 1, verse, let's see. Genesis 1 verses, let's see. We're going to be talking about, we're going to dip into the waters and stuff like that. Not to get too deep into it before we pray. And here we go. All right. And we're actually going to be in John 8. So shout out to the fam Hezekiah. There's a song that he has, John 8:24. And we're going to be in John 8. We're going to be in John chapter 4. We're going to be in 2nd Ezra chapter 6. 2nd Ezra chapter 9. And a couple other places. But let's go ahead and listen to the song. I'm going to get this last little bit together, and then we'll be ready to get started.
If you don't believe you gon' die in your sins, he justified and got us to win. Isaiah 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we can step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of friend. To those that believe to the very end. If you don't believe you gon' die in your sins, he justified and got us to win. Isaiah 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we can step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of friend. To those that believe to the very end. The devil don't like this song. All by that blood on righteous song. We keep it laws, we fight this song. What they gon' say when that brightness come? The world may flash, the light is come. Justify me, we can tell the devil get behind me. Acts 13:39, see, got the truth, you can never find. The grace of the Savior, I'm loving my neighbor. Man, it's fruit when I wake up. Where we gon' go to the maker? Showing my faith by my works. I believe that he rose on the dirt. I believe that I'm free from the curse. Couple months should have been in the hearse. Blotted out, but he got us. And now that we got the faith, shall we may void the law? Do you understand, Paul? Do you understand? Hustle time, man, you got the blood to cover it all. Set us apart, we keeping the law. We got a mediator when we fall. To those that believe, in prison me faultless. We know we need. If you don't believe, you gon' die in your sins. He justified and got us to win. Isaiah 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we just step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of friends. To those that believe to the very end. If you don't believe, you gon' die in your sins. He justified and got us to win. Isaiah 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we just step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of friends. To those that believe to the very end.
Aman. Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. And before we go any further, we're going to jump right in with prayer. Excited for this one. It's chunky. It's going to be a lot. It's not going to be a lot. Actually, Abba's been on me with that to pace this thing out, because it gets deep. It gets deep. And as these rabbit holes go, and as y'all know, and many of us here, as we study, we love them rabbit holes. But let's go ahead and pray. Abba, to die for another Shabbat, another time to rest in you, knowing that all times is to rest in you in time, but we search for a relationship with you that has us in our rest with you at all times, in order to be able to see the love that you give, what love brings to us, and where love has us to move and step in the next way. And as we're studying today on your work and how it really is an everlasting, ever developing work, and how your hand is so great in what you work, and how we can relate everything and to properly see what's going on, how we have to deep dive and keep deep diving and meshing these things together so that they make sense, so we can see you in a place that's more intimate, more knowing, more impactful, to see more of your glory in our lives, so that way we're able to carry it out throughout the week, after we just got through with this week, carrying what we learned the previous one, to die for your works, to die for your greatness, to die for another time with family as well. And we pray these things at Sham YAHASHVAY, at Sham Yahweh, at Sham Ravak Hakwadash, Aman, Aman, and Aman. All right, fam. So, those that caught the post, we're going to be talking about spirit truth. Spirit truth, all one term, SPIRITTRUTH, all one, and how that became a split. And we're going to look into some Hebraic characters in the names of the family, leaning down to Jacob and Esau. We're going to hit Abraham. Then we're going to go Isaac, Rebecca. Then we're going to go Jacob, Esau. And then we're going to correlate that to Obed, Edom, another Edomite. And, Edom being a descendant of Esau, right? Esau said, no, I'm going to live by myself. I'm going to do this on my own. Went to the mountains of Seir and set up a homeland there. But before we even get that deep, I'm led to just walk through how I got to this point, right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through how I got to this point in this study. So many times, what I was taught by my teacher, Kofi, and I applied that, and it worked, and it got me into a deeper meaning of the word. For those that are that if they want to get deeper into the word, right? This is what we're here for. This is what this is, where we study creation fireside, so we're able to see deeper and to be more wise in how we teach and how we speak. Also, like how we talked about Priscilla and Aquila, like that, to also help others speak a little bit better as we come across, but in a proper way. But if we don't see it properly, if we don't have it to our hearts properly, it's not really going to come out in the correct way. Get what I'm saying? So, let's see. So when I was studying the language, right, the language of the covenant, of course, I went to the Ark of the Covenant, and how the Ark of the Covenant was lost, right? They got it back. David put it on a cart instead of having it carried by the hands of the Levites. This led to Uzzah losing his life by trying to catch the falling Ark of the Covenant by hand, right? We could see a lot of things in there. It was a little bit too late for that. He wasn't worthy enough to touch that at that time. It was already on the wrong placement, already carried on a cart made by man instead of being carried by the Levites, right? So when we look at that situation right there as a whole, the cart, the Ark of the Covenant, not being carried by the Levites, that led me on to, well, obviously the cart had to be moved. So again, I knew that it was in front of somebody's house, and I was like, what was that dude's name? It was in somebody's house, and the house was Obed Edom, or Abad Adam, right? So we go Abad Adam. We're going to stop right there and kind of look at that. Obadadam. Those O's, when you see that in the Bible, the O would be transferred to an A, or a lav. So it would be Abadadam, like man, right? Adam, man, right? That's what we learned from Genesis, previous studies, things like that of that nature. So we go Abad right there. The definition of bad, B-A-D, just that alone. Shabbat shalom, sis, Shabbat shalom. What bad is literally alone. It's without a concept, without feature, right? A beside that would make it the opposite of that being, right? That being the opposite. That means that the opposite of that would be the work of what Abad Adam did versus the previous ancestry of the Edomites. Now, Obed Edom lived amongst the Israelites, right? We know that, but it was like a last name, like a two last names type of thing. So he was last name was, you know, Obed Edom. Like Edom was added to it, but Edom being a direct correlation, direct descending line back to the Edomites of Edom, going back to Saul, right? I mean, not Saul, Esau. Going back to Esau, right? So when I went from there, I was like, well, now I have to apply the same work of reading Genesis to Revelation, then taking Revelation back to Genesis. I'm curious to see now of how the Ark of the Covenant ended up being properly cared for in the house of an Edomite, a descendant of an Edomite that was able to properly carry and move the Ark of the Covenant that was lost, brought back. There was a celebration going on with David. David even got frustrated at the point that Uzzah lost his life behind that, right? So, but then all of a sudden it came to Obed Edom, an Edomite, that was able to move the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was placed in its house. Everybody else was scared about it, besides the Edomite, besides the one that you wouldn't think would be the one, right? So we're taking that and we're going to go to Genesis, because everything going back from Revelation can be applied to Genesis, right? What do I mean by that? Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. I'm going to read there, and then we're going to go to 2nd Ezra chapter 9. We're going to read there verses 1 through, let's see, about 10 of chapter 6, and then 1 through 3 or 4 of chapter 9. And we're going to show some precepts on how we even got to this point and how we can see that everything in the Bible or everything in the scroll goes back to a Genesis or a genealogy of a group of people, or a Barashayat in the beginning. So therefore, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with ABBA. So as ABBA's working, the Word is the work. So therefore, YAHASHVAY, being the Messiah, being the Word, has been working with ABBA since the beginning of time. That correlates to what we're going to get to later on too, when YAHASHVAY is stooping in this before, because remember in John chapter 8, I told y'all we were going to get into John chapter 8. He's over there, and there's some brothers debating, and he starts to draw on the sand. But he's stooping. He's not sitting. Sitting would indicate a finished work, as he sits on the right hand of the Father. So in time, in past, present, future time, stay with me, he's already done it, right? But in that time, in that moment, he's in a stooping position, as in he's not sitting yet, but he is still drawing in the sands. Drawing in the sands, and that made me think of the red sandstone mountains of Edom. So now things are starting to come together. I'm like, okay, because this Edom comes from Esau, Esau's spirit, a spirit that is planted in truth, but gets caught up in its truth. Because Esau was the one that came back from the field, right, from hunting. Hunting in the field would indicate beast of the field. These are the passions of the heart. Where in the spirit truth concept, that's where the separation comes and breaks apart, because the concept is getting stuck in a place where it is no longer spirit truth, but it is now spirit separated from truth, truth separated from spirit, being stuck in the truth that Allah Khayyam, that complete work of Allah Khayyam, the righteous direction of the Father being spoken into the blood, water, and spirit, that being what is your truth. But the spirit must be applied to that. Jacob always held onto the heel of Esau. There was always a connection. There was always a oneness there. The covenant, the birthright was always a connecting point. There was always Esau and Jacob. There was always Jacob and Esau. No matter how they wrestled, they were connected. So in a static shock or in an electric shock, if you holding the hand of one person and you hold the hand of another person, this still travels through. You get what I'm saying? So it still travels through. So therefore, a lot of debate now is because everybody wants to give, oh, Esau is this, Esau is that. But no, Esau is in all, we are related. Esau is in all of us. But when we get to an Esau or a Sav place, Allah, Samek, Vav, a place that you're planted by the Father into a thorny ground, but that's what you're nailed to. So that means that's your truth. That's what you're given. But don't get caught up in that. What Jacob told Esau was, hey man, what about your birthright? That frustrated Esau so much, like, oh man, what in the world? And it brought it all the way to the front of his mind. And he said, take it. At that point, there was a separation. There was always a covenant between both. There was always a need of spirit and truth complex. There was always a way for both. But the covenant, either way, we could see from working from Obed-Edom back to Esau, we could see that covenant was still going back to Esau either way, if chosen. You get what I'm saying? But either way, it was still going back. Not that it was meant, quote unquote, for Esau, but that ABBA helps those that are in need, right? So ABBA helps those that are below. That's what I'm going through, what I'm going with that. Not saying that Jacob didn't do what he was supposed to do, but Esau did what he was supposed to do. YAHASHVAY being the word, writing in the sand, how Esau went to the Seir mountain range and settled in a place where the mountains were so high, there was red clay, red sand. Red makes me think about the passion, makes me think about the blood of the Messiah, makes me think about the sacrifice. And when we go back to the story I started with previously in John chapter 8, when the brothers were debating and he drew in the sand, it made me think about the sand and the buildup of everything of where Esau went to. Right there, those brothers were in a very, very deep Esau spirit, right? They were in a very deep Esau place. And again, YAHASHVAY is stooping, not sitting, but drawing in the sand. So that's telling me, all right, this is a place where the Messiah is not done working yet in time. But he's drawing in the sand as if he's doing the work of the Father as he did in the beginning. Because in the beginning, the waters were separated above and below. That's why we're reading the beginning to bring all this together. The waters were separated above and below. The waters brought forth land. The compacting and the contracting of the elements of water are the same elements of sand, the same elements of land. This brought forth earth, right? So when the Messiah is writing in the sand, he's using his finger writing in the sand. He's like because the Messiah doesn't do anything without purpose. So that work of him stooping, not yet sitting, as in, I didn't yet make the sacrifice. Saying the Messiah, not saying I'm the Messiah. People will run with that. But the Messiah is saying, all right, the work has not yet been done yet. They're still drawing in the sand. Esau ran to the sand. Esau ran to the mountaintops, to a place where, mountains, let's think about life, because this is why we could correlate everything back to creation from Revelation, because everything came from Genesis. So now that we read Genesis to Revelation, we can go Revelation to Genesis. Everything past that, we can really group back to the original work of Genesis. So with all that being said, right, we're going to repeat all that in many different ways, but Ravak's just leading, right? Ravak's just leading. So let's keep going. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6, and we're going to read verse 1 through 10, something like that, roughly in that area. And before we jump in with that, let's also remember this, right? Ezra is writing again Genesis. There was a time where the books were burned, even so to a point where it was only the Greco translation available. So Ezra was praying, fasting, and was led to write again the beginning, write again Genesis for those to read, right? So this is what's going on in 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra, he's praying and fasting. This is Ezra, right? He's praying and fasting, and everything's coming together. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Uncle Bruder. Shabbat Shalom. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. For those that have it, we're going to read verse 1 through, and let's go 10. Yeah, 1 through 10. And then we're going to jump over to 2nd Ezra chapter 9. And we're going to bring all this together so y'all can see exactly and walk y'all through exactly where I was coming from with this, how I was led. Because a lot of times, like even with the live I went on yesterday, I was led to take that down. This is some testimony because it's a continuous work. I was led to take that down because I was listening back to it and I was like, well, a lot of this can be misinterpreted. I don't think I said that properly. Let's slow this down and just wait for Shabbat so we can really break this thing open, because a lot of things can be misinterpreted. But This is what we're doing. We're walking through. So in life, in the work, and as you're teaching, don't be discouraged if one time it doesn't come out the way that you feel like it should. If you feel like, oh, I need to go back on that, then go back on it and look at it. It's ABBA helping you out because you know so much. You're intimate with so much. But some people hearing that in different times will have it mistranslated, causing them to either not hear you or causing them to run off with something too early. So be able to catch that. Get used to fine tuning yourself because we're not always raw and right. It could sound raw, it could sound right, but then you go back and listen to it, and it's like, okay, yeah, some places. So just being aware for the teachers and all that, as we all are teachers, as we learn and things like that, we use this in everyday life. So using this in everyday life, everyday changes, But let's go to Second Ezra chapter 6. And then we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1. But let's read, at 2nd Ezra chapter 6, 2nd Ezra chapter 9, then Genesis chapter 1, as we're going to precept everything and see what I mean. So the mind focus right here, metaphorically, as I was saying in the beginning, Genesis to Revelation. Then you read Revelation back to Genesis. Because everything can go back to a Genesis point. Because Barashayat, in the beginning, there was a need for the Messiah. There was a need for the Word. So everything that's going on by ABBA through the Al-Khayyam, through the Ravak HaKodash, and also with YAHASHVAY HaMashaheh being in mind. So everything was created to set up the plot. You know what I'm saying? To set up everything for it to happen. So as YAHASHVAY is drawing his finger in the sand, him being one with the Father, being there since the beginning, technically, in this past, present, future connection, technically, right? By him doing that, we can see that's where we're looking at creation and seeing this, because as he's drawing in the sand, it's like he's doing this from the beginning standpoint all the way again, not even paying attention to what's going on. He's like, I hear you, but this sounds like Esau all over again, Esau and Jacob all over again, right? The enemy will always misinterpret. Those who need will understand will. I'm on. Exactly. It's Shabbat Shalom, Cuzzo. Shabbat Shalom. Let's go into 2nd Ezra chapter 6. We read 1 through 10. And we're going to get it in. All right. So, it says, and he said to me in the beginning. So we can see now that he's talking about Genesis, Barashayat. He's writing this over again for the people. Read 2nd Ezra for sure, because this is a recollection, but it shows you how there's spirit and truth. But spirit, truth, all one thing. We're going to jump into what I mean by that after we read these two. We're going to jump to John and walk through like that, right? It says, and he said to me, in the beginning, when the earth was made, before the portals of the world were fixed, or the gatherings of the winds ever blew, before the voices of the thunder sounded, and before the flashes of lightning shone, or the foundations of paradise were ever laid. That sounds like Genesis 1 through Genesis 1, right? Genesis 1, all the way, the whole chapter. Shabbat Shalom, big brother, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Yah Shalom. And verse 3, before the flowers were seen. That's like Genesis chapter 1. I got it open. Genesis chapter 1, verse 11 right there, talking about the herb-yielding seed. You see how he's doing this over again, repeating. Almost like Deuteronomy, repeating, right? Or the powers of the earthquake were ever established, before the innumerable army of messengers were gathered together, or the heights of the air were ever lifted up, before the measures of the expanse were named, or the footstool of Zion was ever established, because where Abba stands, YAHASHVAY sits. Verse 5, and before the present years were sought out, and or the imaginations of those now sin were ever estranged. So he's talking about before all this. He's seeing all this, right? Recollecting it. Before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure, then I considered these things. And they were all made through me alone, and through none other. As by me they will also be ended, and by none other. So therefore, what is he saying right here? He's saying, trust me, Abba's using me right now. This is what it's supposed to be, to help y'all recollect even more and even more deeply what's going on in the original writings and teachings. Verse 7, then I answered and said, what will be the separating apart of the times? Salah. What will be the separating part of the times? What would be the separating of spirit truth? What would be the separation of that? Or when will the end of the first and the beginning of it that follows? And he said to me, from Abraham to Abraham. Let's pause right there. Remember, we're talking about writing in the sand. We're talking about the red sandstone mountains of Edom. Red sandstone mountains of Edom. Edom, that red, we think about passion. We think about the blood of the Messiah being on the Tav for the sacrifice, right? We're also putting together how Revelation goes back to Genesis and how everything connects, right? So Abraham to Abraham. We're going to stop right there. Abram was his name before Abraham. Abram means figuring out how to love deeply. This is what's starting before we get to Esau and Jacob. This is what the start is. This is what's starting everything. This is the mix, because the woman, when it's not without the man is not without the woman, right? Now we're putting all this together, and we're seeing what is exactly going into Esau and Jacob using the beginning, because everything comes from a beginning mindset. We're going to see that. We're going to prove that in chapter 9 of 2nd Ezra in a second, but let's keep going. Abram to Abram, Abraham to Abraham. He was Abram first, which means figuring out how to love deeply, or you could see it as the womb, or it's a deep protective care. And then we got the Ham, which would be the protection. It would be the righteous protection into the blood, water, and spirit. Boom. So keep that in mind right there. This is Abraham. Sarah, or Sarai, she would indicate being planted in thorny grounds, or being able to receive what's going to be planted in thorny grounds to become the head into an image. So we have that with the love deeply, or the womb. How to love deeply, that deep protective care for the mindset, right? We're bringing all that together. So let's keep going. Inasmuch as Jacob, verse 8, inasmuch as Jacob and Esau were born of him. Inasmuch, so in that, right? Let's keep going. For Jacob's hand held the heel of Esau from the beginning. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. Esau is the end mindset of what we're talking about right here, because we could relate all this to mindset. Everything started from a mindset. Everything started from creation. Everything started from Abba's mindset. And he spoke out and wrote out what that was through whichever prophet in Genesis or Barashayat. And then also we see Ezra did the same thing in 2nd Ezra. Let's keep going. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. Verse 10, the beginning of a man is his hand, and the end of a man is his heel. Between the heel and the hand, do not seek anything else, Ezra. So between what you got, your body, don't be worrying about too much more. But in that connection, from hand to heel, from the works of the hand to where the feet walk, is the spirit truth. That's the connection right there. Keep that in mind again. I'm going to go to chapter 9, and we're going to prove that with John chapter 8. Excuse me, as we keep walking through. Right? Now let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 9, and we're going to read verse 1 through 4. And again, this one came from this rising. I was listening to Elder Ananias, those that familiar with SOC and Pastor Kofi and everything. And it came up, this verse, and it wasn't the one she was looking for. But when I was hearing it, I was like, this explains exactly the other end of what I was talking about from 2nd Ezra chapter 6, 1 through 10. It literally maps out what I'm talking about, how we can see the physical of how the mind is built, or what the mindset is built. So we could read Genesis chapter 1 in the beginning. We could read all the way talking about the firmament, or the dividing point, or the require, that being the mindset, right? That being everything in the mind. The mind separates what? The waters above and the waters below. From above waters is what Abba, that's where above that is Abba, right? Below is what supports the earth. So we have the waters that flow from heaven as rain, and we have the waters that support earth. These things work together to give you a mindset, to give you creation, to give you a bubble, if you will, for lack of better words at this time, right? So 2nd Ezra chapter 9, We're going to read verse 1 through 3. Second Ezra chapter 9. Con, fam. Yeah. Kofi, hey, he did some work. He did some work in your brother. Let's go to Second Ezra chapter 9 and read verse 1 through, no, I told the fib, 1 through 6. For those that's with the fib, that's how I know y'all came around some southern raising. We can't say lie. Shabbat shalom, Auntie Marion. Shabbat shalom. Great to see you. Let's go to Second Ezra chapter 9, verse 1 through 10. Let's jump on in. It says, "And he answered me and said, Measure diligently within yourself. And when you see that a certain point of the signs are past, which have been told to you beforehand, then you will understand that it is the very time wherein the Most High will visit the world which was made by him." We're going to pause right there. No, we're going to keep reading. "And there will be seen in the world earthquakes, despitude of people, plans of nations, wavering of leaders, disquietude of princes, disquietude of people. Then you will understand that the Most High spoke of these things from the days that were previously from the beginning. For just as all of that is made in the world, the beginning is evident and the end manifest. So also are the times of the Most High. The beginnings are manifest in wonders and mighty works, and the end in effects and signs." Salah right there. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. We're going to salah right there. That said a lot. That said a lot, right? So now we're going to look at this from 2nd Ezra chapter 9, and we're going to look at 2nd Ezra chapter 6. And we're going to also relate it to Genesis chapter 1. You don't have to turn there, but Genesis chapter 1, verse 4. No, verse 6. I'm sorry. Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. It says, "And Alachayim, which is the righteous direction of the Father, spoken into the blood, water, and spirit. And Alachayim said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let it divide the waters from the waters. And Alachayim made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so." Firmament is a translation of the word require, right? That's the Hebraic word. Verse 8, "And Alachayim called the firmament Shamayim, or heaven, and the evening and the rising were the second day. And Alachayim said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And Alachayim called the dry land earth, or Arat, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And Alachayim saw that it was Tabah." So what is that separation of waters? Now that we have that in our mind frame, so between the waters above and the waters below, we could picture a brain. Basically, that's what that firmament is referring to. Require, firmament, separating place that's in between waters, that's surrounded by waters technically, right? That's where we're at right now. So right there in the middle of that, the waters above and the waters below, is the brain. The mixture of the two. The mixture of the waters above and the waters below supporting the earth, the waters above coming from the gates of heaven. What is Allah Ba'ait Allah? What is Abba? Is from the source into a mindset, and that mindset needs to properly go back to source. So from Abba to Abba, from waters above to waters below. There we go. That's awesome. That's awesome. Because it's in the mind. So that's why I keep saying it in different ways. So that happens. So great. You know, so that's the mind right there. So right here we can see what happens in the mind. There comes to a point in the waters where dry land, you walk upon a place, you walk upon a thing. You got to stay there. That's where the dry land appears. That's what that is inside of the mind. So that truth, that dry land, was spoken into. Everything is spoken into to make land. Everything was spoken into to make land. So we'll keep that in our mind. On that land, what happens? 2nd Ezra chapter 9. We see that there will be world earthquakes. That's just a shaking up of things. Disquietude of people, plans of nations, which is different mindsets and different governments, wavering of leaders from inside the culture and outside. Disquietude of princes, Then you will understand that the Most High spoke of these things from the days that were previously from the beginning. For just as all of that is made in the world, the beginning is evident and the end manifest. Let me jump to the last bit of that verse. The beginnings are manifest in wonders and mighty works. That's talking about the beginning of the creation. And the end is in effects and signs. What does that mean? Wisdom is already around. Wisdom being the Ravak Hakodash, wisdom being the Holy Spirit. Wisdom is already in everything. Everything we see is dipped in wisdom. So we get knowledge or intimacy and we get understanding. So all that together. Now we got all them pieces. I'm gonna put that together in a big old run-on sentence, okay? So that way we can see exactly where I'm coming from with this Jacob and Esau going all the way back, right? It's a lot, but if you gotta watch it back a couple times, please feel free to. But this is just going in deeper to really see what's going on and really seeing the purpose of Genesis to Revelation, Revelation back to Genesis. So it's like taking everything. If you got your two hands up, you got your left hand, you got your right hand. Left hand being Genesis, right hand being Revelation, right? So everything came from the left hand, Father, to the revelation of the right hand. Who would that be on the right hand? That would be YAHASHVAY. We could put that in there too. You see how everything could really be applied there. Because in Revelation, he saw YAHASHVAY. He saw him coming together, and then what he wore, the description of what he wore and things like that, being covered from head to toe, things of that nature. We can see the connection of the heel that we just read in 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and 2nd Ezra chapter 9. We can see a connection there. They start ping-ponging back and forth, left hand and right hand. So that as the right hand is going back to the left hand, it's squeezing everything together back to Genesis. Everything together back to Genesis. Everything could be related back to Genesis. So the end times is the end of a mindset, is the end of a thinking. No man knows the day nor the hour of the end of what's around here, right? But this is supposed to be for the righteous people, not to be. All right, not be utterly destroyed. Now, I was dwelling on that for a while. I was dwelling on that, not to be utterly destroyed. Because what he has spoken will be spoken into existence. Right? What he has spoken will be spoken into existence forever. So when the Messiah was talking about, until heaven and earth passed away, shall not one jot nor tittle be changed. Shall not one jot nor tittle be taken away, destroyed. Right? Because if it was, that means the law would no longer be needed. That means the law would no longer have been spoken. That means the law would no longer, it would have been a thing that wasn't necessary. And that ABBA doesn't see anything that he does as void. So we could put all that together. See what I'm saying? So we could look at Revelation also not being the last thing written as well, but a revelation of the mindset, the revelation of YAHASHVAY coming back in a person as we strive for perfection, because ABBA would not give us a goal that is not unobtainable. He wouldn't give us anything like that. As we try to be like the Messiah the best that we can, the most ways that we can, and as long as we can. This is the way. But in order to do that, we have to understand what the Messiah has been doing since the beginning of time, through the being the word through ABBA, right? So not saying the Messiah has been doing everything, but ABBA who sits on the right hand of ABBA, which is YAHASHVAY, which is the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was ABBA, and the word was with ABBA, right? So all that being the word, and correlating that all the way back to YAHASHVAY drawn in the sand when those two men were arguing, and he stooped down. He didn't sit. Why did he stoop down? He didn't sit because sitting would mean complete rest. Sitting means everything is done. In the past, present, future concept, it's done in the future, but in the present, it's not yet done. So as they're doing all this arguing and stuff like that, he's writing in the sand. We can see that correlation because that's exactly what was spoken to Ezra. Ezra was giving, he was asking for before all these things were made. What were all these things? You don't have to flip back there. I'm gonna flip back there for you. 2nd Ezra chapter 6. He was talking about before the portals of the world were fixed, or before the ins and outs of what's going on of life, before the ins and outs of messages, before waters above to waters beneath, before that concept, before touching the mind, right? Or the gatherings of the winds ever blew. The winds control which way things go. From dust we come and shall return. Exactly, Khan. Like the winds blow back and forth. They move things back and forth. From in the beginning, what did the winds do? The winds gathered the gases, heated up the gases because it's gathering, blowing, right? And then the gases are cooled by the same wind, by the Ravak HaKodash, by the Holy Spirit. And when it cools, what do gases do when they become cool? They become water. And when the waters are so compacted together, right, moved by this thing, compacted together, what comes from that? Sand, or sea and land, or underwater volcanoes. You can look that up. You can Google that. That's how underwater volcanoes are made, from the pressures of the water coming together so tightly, pushing up sand, which shoots up land, which settles down to be islands. Or in the beginning, we could really get a mindset of that would be earth. That would be Arat. Also, side note, the second Esdras, it actually tells you how much more land there is than the water, than the waters it kind of sits on as well. There's more land out there that's kind of not really been um well, we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave that alone for today. But yeah, all that coming together. So what else was it? Let's see. Before the voices of thunder sounded, and before the flashes of lightning shone, or the foundations of paradise were ever laid, before the flowers were seen, or the powers of the earthquake were ever established, before the innumerable army of messengers were gathered together. All these things being the works from the beginning. All these things being in that. And the highest being exactly full circle. Full circle, Genesis to Revelation, Revelation to Genesis. That's how you're really catching everything. And that's what we do here. We study creation to be more fit and more ready to walk around things, to walk about things, and to dodge, not dodge, but to be able to correlate what's been created to what you're going through. To correlate spirit, truth, all in one term. Spirit, truth, all one term. That's what we're studying and diving into today. Spirit, truth. Spirit being the work of the things, truth being what was spoken into you for your walk and for your way and for purpose, right? But don't get caught up in truth that you forget about spirit. That's what was going on with Jacob and Esau. That's the center of what we're going into today. Jacob and Esau. That's what was happening when Esau came back from the field after hunting, after being so caught up in the beast of the field, the passions of the heart, right? That's what that represents as well. Fowl of the air being the thoughts of the mind, beast of the field being the passions of the heart, and fish of the sea being what you're walking on, because one foot was in sea, one foot was on land. So we could correlate that, and that's how you plug and play to get these meanings when it might seem drastic to people. Like it might seem out the way, it might seem wild, but so is the Messiah. Nothing the Messiah did was without purpose. So again, him stooping instead of sitting, to write in the ground, to write in the sands. The same, that made me think about going back before to this red sandstone mountains of Edom, right? Drawing in the middle of Edom. What was Edom from? Edom was from Esau. So drawing all the way around in the sand, like the hand of the father or the finger of the father, as some do, some relate to, did in the beginning of the world. The same thing's happening here. And the same, going back to Obed Edom, how everything comes together, how my mind was kind of working. I was like, okay, Obed Edom, Abad Adam. Abad, or not being alone, Adam, Adam, the version of not being alone in man, right? Not being alone, not being without the way that things should be, not being without the way that things should be carried, because Obed Edom was the one that was able to move the Ark of the Covenant after David got it back from them. He put it on a cart instead of letting the Levites carry it in anyway. There's a lot of misconception, a lot of missing. But then I was like, well, how was it Edomite out of everybody? Which technically he worked in a Levitical role, but I'm like, still, how does an Edomite even get to be in that position? An Edomite of Esau is the one that brought everything together with the Ark of the Covenant. How does that work? So you start to get everything full circle. You start to look back and see what it was. So then it helped me see that this Ark of the Covenant, this language of covenant, the covenant language, was always there with Esau. It was always there with Jacob, but there was a separation there. There was, when I say that it was always meant for Esau, what I'm saying is, not just us, but Esau needed this as well. That's what I mean. It wasn't just forget about Esau. Esau is just always this evil person. Esau got tired. Esau went to a place where he was confused. He was searching. He was reaching for anything but the spirit. Esau was in a place where it just didn't make sense. Esau was relatable, right? Esau just wasn't just somebody that just said forget everything. It's just that when it was brought to the front of his mind, he didn't know how to handle it. But Obed-Edom knew how to handle the Ark of the Covenant. Obed-Edom knew how to handle the works of the language of covenant. He knew how to hold the Levitical roles. A big difference of Obed-Edom than it was of Esau. A big difference. And the whole time there's work being done in the past, present, future complex. That's what we're talking about too. So the whole time that's going on, we can go above that and see Abba and YAHASHVAY and his work working all these things at the same time in full circle above everything. So we could see Jacob and Esau. We could see the mountains being formed even of Seir. Being formed by the same hand, by the same point as the Messiah was doing, writing in the sand. So it made me think of an Esau-Jacob position. Even in John chapter 8 and chapter 6, in between there, YAHASHVAY actually sat on the well of Jacob. That means a lot too. That means a lot right there, but we'll get there later on too. But all these things, and it goes into a very, very deep dive. It gets interesting. So when I'm talking about correlating Genesis to Revelation, Revelation back to Genesis, Revelation being, all right, this is the Messiah. This is who he is, who he was, who he comes with, and who he will always be. And that is, there will be many things surrounding walking like this and being in this walk, especially with love. Because you will get mocked, you will get talked about, you will get videos posted about you. This is the era of social media. A lot of things could happen. But these same things happen to the Messiah. In Revelation, the rumors of wars and things of that, etc., even to Leviathans and things of that nature, these big creatures of the sea, the big things that are in the ways that we walk on that could possibly trip us up. Esau had a problem with wrestling beasts. That was Esau's issue. Esau couldn't really hold his heart posture right. Esau lost the spirit-truth connection. It's very important to keep the spirit truth. Knowing where you are, who you are, and who you're around. Maintaining subtlety, being quick to hear, so to speak. All these things together is very important in the daily walk and the daily view of things too. As we're just refining things and going back in with reminders every now and then, because it's good to have. Especially this past week, and how it was just a little bit of not a rough week, but it was just a week that can definitely be remembered. You know what I mean? And how I had to see things, right? And not show hate in somebody, but to go against my big heart so much that I was not able to push aside what I had to do and knew I had to do. And there was basis of why I did that, because of the rejection of things. Not saying this is why I said no, but the rejection helped me see, okay, what I'm concentrating on is this. What I'm concentrating on is going into a study. I love but studying with fam. I love giving what I go through and the process I go through. I love seeing Ravak move and the testimonies that come after this, like after days of this. You know what I mean? I'll get people that tells me, hey, this was from this word, this meant this to me. And I won't even hear these things. This is what I love. And I chose that instead of choosing where it was brought to people, right? But instead I was mocked for it. Instead I was called a 5%er. Instead this. Not saying like that made me mad to be like, forget y'all. No. Because I would still have the stranger that would still do that to me, right? But I'm saying in that moment there was a choice to be made. I could procrastinate with this, or I can put all my work and effort into something where Abba's not even there. You see what I'm saying? Hating is ignoring. Hating is not destroying, it's not squishing down. When Abba hates, Abba just ignores. He doesn't look upon it. That's what hate means. Don't look upon it. So you have to be able to get these things in these moments, being able to really break down the beast of the field, the passions of the heart, because that affects your works and your walks and things like that. And these things bring consequences. They bring sequences that go with your decision. But an easy way to see if Abba is there and if Abba is not. What I was, even in myself with Esau, Abba was still in Esau. Still. There was still a plan for Esau way down the line to be able to touch the Ark of the Covenant, to be able to properly move it, to live with it, with his family, with his daughters and things like that. Even though at that point Obed-Edom again was not considered to be an Edomite because he was with the Israelites and everything for so long, Levitical ways, things of that nature. But to be so far separated from who his ancestor, directly, Esau, from how he was, Obed-Edom was able to handle it properly and correctly. You know, that's what I saw from that, going back into the Ark of the Covenant story. In that aspect, there's many different aspects. You know, when you keep going through the scriptures and stuff like that, it gets deep. You know, I'll be in studying for like 3-4 hours. I'll be from, like you see the Bible, I'll go to the quote unquote apocryphal books, but it's all one scroll. Second Ezra, seeing how, you know, it backs up again the concept of creation. Creation is creation no matter what creation is. Creation is a mind, creation is body, creation is soul, creation is surroundings. Everything goes back to Genesis. Everything goes back to the point of Barashayat, of the word, of the work and the word of everything together. Everything is full circle. So if we can teach people how to do that, the world would be a lot better place. You know, there's always some cut divide, but in an unrighteous way. And that's based off of emotional things, you know, from the past. I was saying also as well that I noticed that people, not the people are horses, pigs, sheep, rams, etc., but these qualities of things that are in these animals. These qualities is what people hold on to instead of holding on to Abba. Now I'm thinking about Esau. Esau would have held on to an animal versus concentrating on Abba. That's how I got that concept, relating that to each other. This is how it works. This is Allah by Allah. This is the work, the relationship of Abba. Many people, even when I was speaking about Yahweh, I was like, well, that's not his name. And they were like, what do you mean? Like, that is his name. And then I mean, people threw tomatoes at your boy. But I was like, whoa. What I was saying is, how did the Messiah pray? They asked him, we pray in what manner? He said, our Father. Whenever he talked about Abba, Father, he said, Father. That's the relationship I have. I have a relationship with Father. So I don't need to, I see Father. Now I see that Father uses Yahweh. He uses righteousness. Abba uses Al-Hayam. He speaks Al-Hayam. He speaks action into earth through the waters. But the waters around the mind can get caught up in these things. The waters of the mind can get caught up in the Holy Spirit trying to, but she's not going to chase you. But that being working with the fallen spirits around us, it throws people off. Yeah, one whole scroll can't. Like it throws things off. But if we could get it back together, it'll be just fine. Now we see that again, Abba uses Yahweh. He uses the character Yavad Chai Vav Chai. He uses those characters, and that's righteousness. That is Taba. Abba uses Al-Hayam. He speaks the righteous direction of him into the blood-water spirit for their purpose. But maintain low tone and stay and walk light. You know what I mean? Maintain low tone and walk light. He speaks that. He uses that. But this all comes from Abba. He said, when you see the Father, when you see him, you see the Father, vice versa. Right? Even another example. I guess we're throwing these out. Again, if we hold up our left hand and our right hand like a field goal post, right? And remember, it talks about the turning of the other cheek. Right? It says, if you get hit on the right, now which one? Is it the right cheek or left cheek? I believe it's the right cheek. Yeah, because that was a sign of disrespect. You get smacked on the right cheek, right? Don't smack yourself in the face, but you got your left hand and your right hand up. You get smacked on the right cheek. You're looking at your left hand. Who's on the left? The Father. And when you turn your head back, you got to give back that righteousness. You're looking back at the right side. This is the concept, exactly. This is the concept of Allah by Allah, right there in between those two hands. Ain't your head in the middle of it? You see what I'm saying? This is Allah by Allah. This is the concept. When they talk about walk 1 mile, go with them 2. That's giving the righteous reaction. That's showing sometimes, not all the time, sometimes people don't like being kind. You know, but sometimes you got to ignore. Sometimes you can't look upon things. Sometimes you had to separate it because Abba was sent there. You rejected. You wanted the desert, so you let them have the desert. Again, take that with a grain of salt. Don't be out here just cutting people off and cutting people and stuff like that. But think about it, right? Because you got to give the righteous reaction at all times. That's what the concept is. When they ask you to go 1 mile, go for them 2. Give them that extra that they're not seeing. But that's still love too. That's still love altogether. John 15:8. Yep. That's it. John 15:18. Matter of fact, let's triple check. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. John 15:18. I think it was the right cheat because that was a sign of disrespect. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Okay. I was laughing at myself too when I was preparing for this. I was like, I was trying to write Israel, but in English. And I could not for the life of me remember how to spell it or remember how to write it out for those that's afraid of that word. Again, with that too, we got to ease up on that because what you're afraid of, you put yourself under the control of. So be mindful of that as well. I don't put myself under control of words or anything. I don't give anything the power over me. So therefore, Asham Abba, Asham Yahweh, the righteous work of Abba, is nothing's going to work. That's not going to affect me. So walk like the Messiah. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. Exactly. Khan. Oh, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Peace and blessings be upon you. Our Father's peace and blessings be upon you, sir. But yeah, that was a whole lot of side notes. But remember that correlation. Walk around with your hands up like a field goal post. If you got to remind yourself of how do you got to look back and forth, right? Yeah, it does feel different. It does. And it helps you see things a lot different. It helps you see the separation. Like, it's mind-blowing how I'll be I drive trucks, right? I'll be in the truck and I'll be driving and I'll look at people and I'm just like, everybody's so zoned out. You know? So zoned out. People wonder how I get to these places and how I'm like always in the right place at the right time. And that's because I don't follow anybody's time but Abba. Now there are guidelines to this. I don't just say bump everything, but like what I was talking about for my work, what I work at, or my toil, if y'all want to use that word, that terminology. When I'm at work, I'll wake up maybe 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, something like that. No, that's a fib. Between 2:30 and 4:30, something like that. 5 o'clock, I'll wake up, and then I'll get going. If I wake up at 2:30, and I was like, nope, go get some more rest. I'm gonna get some more rest, and I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna carry out my day, and I'll still get finished before a lot of people get finished. And I never started this at the same time. You know what I mean? It's like Albert shows me all the time the perfection and the protection because of the communication, because of the study of the Hebrew character. Because this is what allows me to see, even in Obed Edom, that E will be an A when you put it back to Hebraic characters, right? Now that E would be an A, so it would be ADAM. It would be the opposite of being without the mindset of who Adam was in the beginning. Adam lost mindset for a second. We can see that in Obed Edom. Let me matter of fact, let me write that out. So that way y'all can keep on following me with that. Obed Edom. Then we got Abad, Adam, and then I'll talk out what yeah, we are people of character. Yeah, we don't spell. Yeah. Yep. Speaking on witchcraft and stuff like that, that correlation, but more so what I was going with that was the spirit that you pour into a word, the spirit that you pour into a terminology. Like I could be using this word and to somebody else in their place and position, They might see, oh, you're just casting spells, but in my position, I'm just speaking, fam. That's the distance between the two. But that's because I've gone full circle with the scroll. Many people just go Genesis, Revelation, Apocrypha, done. But no, we got to work our way all the way back because these things are continuously happening in past, present, and future. These things are continually evolving, revolving. The word is constantly renewing. You know, the thing with the work of the Messiah is that we can go really specific on what we respect, what we don't respect. You know, many words and many terminologies they were using before to curse somebody, for example. There are many terms and things used. They would call people a beggar. They would call people this. They would call people that. But these are the same words that were still said because it was spirit that was poured into it. These were quote unquote curse words, if you want to. But these were still words that were obviously said. To call somebody a pig was very disrespectful. But YAHASHVAY said it right out of his mouth. It's a spirit that you pour into it. And it's the spirits that he's casting out into something else because get up off me. He casted the spirits into the pig, out of the person, out of the mankind because the Messiah was kind. So per situation, per mankind, per man truth, he worked the way, right? They did so. Yeah, exactly. That's a lot. That's a lot. How I learned not to get not as they say quick on my feet, right? That's how I learned that because I expect the stone. I expect this and that because again, like you got to be wild in order to understand things. The Messiah was not a quote unquote normal person. He was a Nazarite. They want the richest people in the world. He spoke to the fig tree and said, "You're supposed to give me," like basically saying, "You're supposed to give me fruit and you ain't giving me no fruit. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're supposed to bow down to me. Like, this is how this works. What you doing? Give me my fig." you know, um, this is like how everything comes together, right? But yeah, Obed Edom Abad Adam. Let's go back to that point. Obed Edom Abad Adam. So we got Obed Edom. We got Abad or bad being alone. The opposite of when you put a in front of something, it's the opposite of whatever that is. So without the alone feeling, without missing the connection of spirit, truth, and Abba, without that, right? Adam. So what did Adam have a problem with in the beginning? Adam had a problem with remaining close to Abba. Adam had a problem with staying in the way of Abba and what he told him to do and the way he told him to walk. He had a problem with letting whoever, whatever, tell Eve or, excuse me, Iazar or Amma, if you want to do that, technically, mother. He could have stopped a lot of what happened. He could have said, hey, we're not supposed to even be listening, nothing like that. Nah. But what he was telling Adam in the beginning was, don't eat of this tree. This is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or righteousness and wickedness. We're trying to keep that spirit truth together, trying to keep it in the holy way. But what did they do? They found out about the wickedness. He didn't say that you couldn't know it at all. He was just saying that you weren't ready to know that yet. That was the thing. That was the way. Of course, in all his greatness, he knew that was going to happen too. Of course, the whole time, there's drawing in the sand, drawing from the waters, drawing from where sand comes from. So all that, I'm gonna take a salah because we kind of going back to back to back to back. I'm gonna take a salah, but yeah, this changes things. It changes things a lot because who or what or why should we be afraid of anything? Even fear in the Bible it relates to respect. Be careful of what you respect. Be careful of what you give power to. If ye be risen with the Messiah, there are things that come with this. The Colossians 3, I think that was something like that. A lot comes with it. It has you looking wild sometimes. It has you kind of out the way sometimes. But to see the protection that comes from it is awesome. In my testimony, like it was little hiccup, a little bump in the road happened here recently, but it was nothing that I was afraid of, nothing I was nervous about. I'm like, well, this already worked out. I know that for sure. Like, so I'm not worried about it. Let me just listen to ABBA, listen to that voice in the back of my head, and really trust that voice and really go off that instinct, because you're gonna know when it's that voice. You know, you're gonna know when it's your own thoughts. When the fowl of the air gets their feathers ruffled. That terminology, don't let me ruffle your feathers. That's a correlation as well to the thoughts of the air, the fowl of the sky, the birds of the sky. Like, these things are already known, right? But for some reason, it's written down in the Bible. For some reason, it's not for everybody to understand. For some reason, it's metaphorically. For some reason, it's in parables, right? Well, you got to dive in. You got to see things in full circle in order to know a parable. You got to know full circle in order to understand the metaphor. You got to know the beginning object, the end object, and how they connected that in the middle in order to understand a metaphor, in order to understand a parable. So you got to go full circle. You see, but if you got to sit there, you got to chew the cud on it, because if not, I say I notice a lot of people trying to hurry up and get done when it comes to the scroll. There's none of that. There ain't none of that. There ain't none of hurry up and get done. There's none of that. Absolutely none of it, because it's constantly renewing. It's constantly something you got to look back to. It's constantly something that we got to keep going to, right? Yeah, that's the order of everything. Um, let's see where we're gonna go from there. I guess we kind of talked about everything for real. For real. We kind of skimmed over everything. Um, okay, let's go to John chapter 6. All right, we're gonna go to John chapter 6, going with that first initial voice and just following that wholeheartedly. Like, no, John chapter 4. I'm sorry, John chapter 4. Yep. In John chapter 8, I was in between John chapter 6 because I thought there was something there too. That was for me earlier. That was for me earlier. Then we're going to go to John chapter 8. Yep. Well, we don't really have to read John chapter 8. But John chapter 8 right there is where it's talking about the Messiah drawing in the sand and stuff like that. Or wrote on the ground, breaking it all the way down to sand, breaking it all the way down to water, breaking it all the way down to gas, its full effect. So that's how you can see parables and understand parables if you're able to do a full circle. But for example, if you use Revelation as your last book, as in the end of days instead of the end of a mindset, you're not going to go full circle. You're going to be kind of thrown off. You're going to chase signs and wonders. There's a perverted nation. It means per view or per rising or per occurrence, per thing, you're distracted, right? That's what that means. Perverted is something that knocks you off track. But those that don't chase signs and wonders would have kept going from Revelation and looked and seen that, okay, John looked up and saw the Messiah. Or, you know, that right there is a lesson too. When you look up, you change your perception, right? You get to everything differently. When the Messiah looked up, when they were talking about the fish and loaves, he looked up and changed his perception. He looked up to Abba through the waters above and changed his perception to get the right correlation. The Messiah really walked and really seen and really lived in everything serving us, because that was the purpose. And this is going to seem kind of wild, but this is how it breaks down. From the trees to the grass to everything it yields for us. So in a moment, when the Messiah was like, fig me, and the fig tree want to do it, it might not have been a season for it, whatever, but that's not the way it works. The wilderness and everything works for you. It was for you here, right? Some people may hear that and say, that sounds delusional. Well, it just depends on if you have a relationship with Abba or if you have a relationship with law, right? This is what I mean by that. Take it as a grain of sand again. If you have a relationship with just law, when I'll say something like this, Shabbat is every day, the person would immediately say, no, it's not. You're just stuck in law. You don't have a relationship with Father. With the relationship with Father, I'm resting in Him all the time, every day, all day. Shabbat was made for man, not man for Shabbat. Man for Shabbat would be man for a specific time, but that's being stuck in time. Thinking outside of time, exactly, daily. Thinking outside of time, going with everything constantly. Shabbat is every day. It's all the time. So these things, like the stars and the moon and the cycles and stuff like that, for the seasons, is for the seasons, it's for the changes. So you can see the changes and watch the changes come. But if you're worshiping the moon and stars, you're worshiping a certain day. You're worshiping a certain, exactly, every breath is Shabbat. Through the nostrils of Adam came the breath of lives, right? If you're worshiping the moon and the stars, then you're stuck on a specific day, a specific time. But you could count seasons, because what did it say? What does the scroll say was that was for? The stars and the moon and everything like that. It was for the seasons, for the changing of seasons. So you're able to track the seasons. That was it. That was before. Mm. Mm. All right, all right, all right. That was before the law of Moses, right? That was before the law of Moses. I'm a Salah right there. I guess we're going deep. We're going to break open some things. What do I mean by that? Because again, to the naked ear, that might sound delusional. So in the beginning, Adam and Izar had a relationship with Abba, right? Father. What was the one law he said? Don't put anything else before him. He said, don't mess with that tree. Don't eat of that fruit. Don't listen to nobody saying that. Don't do it. After that, we see there's an order of Melchizedek, or Malachai Sadak, which is the way that the Messiah still walked into, still gave props to, you know. Again, we still haven't gotten to Moses. There was Abraham, right? Still haven't gotten to Moses. Isaac, Ishmael, still no Moses yet, right? Then we got Jacob, Esau, still not yet, right? Jacob has 12 sons, well, more, adopted into. Still no Moses yet. They're still in Kemet. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by this is before the law of Moses, because Genesis was technically written by Moses. So, in full circle, do you have a relationship with Abba? Or do you have a relationship with law? With the Sumerians, they followed the first 5 books, quote unquote. They followed Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That was their beef with the rest of the Israelites, because they just followed the first 5 books. You see what I'm saying? Gotta let them marinate. They refused to follow anything outside the first 5 books. Then the Messiah came to them, but he was already with the others, right? Because there were still prophets, there were still laws, there was still guidance, there was still more outside of the law of Moses. Now, it's great law, not one jot nor tittle shall be changed. It gets you close to Abba, still hold these holy days, not saying any of that. But in a deeper relation, we can see why it also talks about Paul when he was like, don't get caught up in these things, because these are just a glimpse of the glory to be revealed. You know, these are just a little bit. These are just a taste of what's to be revealed, but not to omit anything. See, oftentimes when I say things like this, people are like, oh, you're omitting this, you're omitting that, you're omitting this. They have a followers complex trauma bond, because many try to be like, hey, I'm going to be the leader, follow me. That's what they're thinking you're saying, because you think that you're the one that can omit anything, because the only person that could omit anything would be the Messiah, who we follow. So you're saying you're the Messiah. You're blasphemous. And your boy ain't say none of that. You see what I'm saying? But I see things in full circle. So I see the thoughts that are occurring in their mind as you're thinking them. So I already know why they said that. I already know why people come at me a lot of times. Like if somebody comes at me and they haven't asked me anything, there's a complex or a trauma of afraid of being wrong, or a communication problem. The 2 major things I've seen in my testimony of life is protection and communication being purposes. This is what I see everything has been and will continue to be, for purpose and for communication. You got to work on those 2 things. protecting, and communicating. Yeah, leaning on their own understanding, exactly. And you got to be able to see things full circle. Well, why did Abba speak that into that person's life? Allah Khayyam. Like, yeah, Tada says Tada. Like, why did he speak that into their life? You don't know. You don't know. So you got to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, and step in when you're supposed to. When casting is called. Play your position well. As we always say, properly be in position. But don't put yourself under a spell. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. But let's read chapter 4 of John. That's where we're going to. John chapter 4, as we just chilling and studying creation. We're going to read verse 1. I put 1 through 38, but I'm going to go 1 through 24. It's all related. Really, the whole chapter is relatable. So when you're reading something to get the concept of something, excuse me, or to get everything going together, read the whole chapter. Read the whole book, But yeah, let's start there. But let's go to John chapter 4. I'm going to give y'all a couple of seconds. I'm going to drink some more water. I think that's why I keep burping. We'll read John chapter 4, read verse 1 through 24. As we're studying creation, as we're studying at fireside, really seeing what's going on, right? All praises, all praises. Really seeing what's going on. Right? So John chapter 4, we're going to start reading. And remember, we're doing Genesis to Revelation and Revelation to Genesis. We're doing full circle. And remember, if you're seeing Revelations or Hazan as the last, then you're not going to get back to the first. You're going to frustrate your mind because you're going to leave the waters unworked, Let's go ahead and read chapter 4. When therefore, let's see how we're going to do this. I'm going to just read it plainly. Right? When therefore the Adonai, because Adon would be Abba Father. Adonai, that A-Y, or the E-A-D, hold on, how do you? A-D-O-N-A-I, right? That right there, that I at the end would be an A-Y, would be the Ion. So that would be an image. So Abba, Lord of Lords, King of Kings, in the image would be Adonai, right? We could see that. Or we could say Adon as well, because he is of the Father, perfect second Adam as well. So, I mean, which one you want to put there, plug there. So I guess in ultimate respect, we're going to use Adon. Right? Wherefore then the Adon knew how the Pharisees had heard that YAHASHVAY made, yeah, that's what we're going with. YAHASHVAY made and baptized more disciples than John. He left Judea and departed again into Galilee. And he must needs go through Samaria. Now, remember, Samaria or the Sumerians are the people that just went with the 5 books of the Bible. Right? Keep that in mind. They just went with the first 5 books. They just went with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They just went with Moses. They stopped there. They made everything that barrier. And they also started marrying into different nations and getting things mixed into there as well. The different nations would be the ones that would influence things of that nature. Again, talking about the woman that she had multiple husbands, but she said, I have no husband. And YAHASHVAY said, correct, but we're going to get there. Verse 5, also keeping in mind Jacob and Esau, keeping all this together, right? Verse 5, then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, or Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Right? Verse 6, now Jacob's well was there. YAHASHVAY, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well. So we're going to salah right there. He sat on the well. Why did he sit on the well? Because what Jacob did was completed already type of thing, right? But then also sitting upon righteous waters. We can see all that coming together, right? We could plug all that in right there. Sat thus on the well It was about the 6th hour. We're going to salah right there. What is the 6th hour? That doesn't just represent Aleph, Bai, Gamal, Dalet, Chai, Vav. That doesn't just represent Vav or being nailed in place or the Messiah literally sitting on the well, right? But noonday is a time we're going to go study a psychology, right? Study a psychology, the psychological things. Noon is a time when mental focus pivots from active external tasks to internal balance. When mind wandering and freely moving thoughts peak, serving as a turning point between rising drive and evening rest. Salah right there. I'm going to read that one more time. So YAHASHVAY sits upon Jacob's well, or the well of Jacob, in the 6th hour. All this together. And the 6th hour being noon. Noon being a time when the mental focus pivots from active external tasks to internal balance. When mind wandering and freely moving thoughts peak. Right? This is YAHASHVAY concentrating on what's going on right here. Right? In a sense, because past, present, future, everything all going on, but in properly placed, properly being in position, these things take sequences in time. So in this time, he's seeing these thoughts coming together, knowing these things, right, as well. So technically all of that, it coming together and knowing these things is the same process, the same exact process, breaking it down to a gene Isis way, or a Barashayat, or a reason for a Barashayat way. That's what we're breaking all the way down to. And this is serving as a turning point between rising drive and evening rest. This is a turning point from Genesis to Revelation, what you revel in, what you sit there and you get the concept of from. This is all happening upon Jacob's well. Salah. Again, with the waters. We talked about the waters above, the waters below, connecting all that as well. Sand coming from waters, the sea and land being sand, the compact, the togetherness of it, and the misstep being 1 foot on sea. A step of it being 1 foot on sea and 1 foot on land as well. We can relate all this together, but let's keep reading. Verse 7. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. YAHASHVAY said unto her, Give me to drink. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans, or Samaritans. That's weird. Verse 10. YAHASHVAY answered and said unto her, If thou knowest the gift of Al-Khayam, of what is spoken into your life, into position, if you know spirit truth, if you know how to keep that together, and who is it that saith to thee, Give me to drink? Thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Now, right there, let's go back to verse 7 of chapter 4. He said, There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. YAHASHVAY said unto her, Give me to drink. Now we know those that know this story, at the end of it, she's the one that went back and started testifying of who she met, right? Also in the Genesis to Revelation mindset, also keeping in the Esau spirit, or someone to throw in a Jezebel spirit, if you want to throw that in there as well, because that could be worked in. But this is over water. This concept of her accepting and receiving and seeing that YAHASHVAY, she called him a prophet, which he is of all these sorts, right? But seeing that this process, and before, what was asked of Jacob by Esau. Esau wanted something to eat, right? Again, getting caught up in the beasts of the field and not the waters, right? This is what we can see here as well as we start breaking things down too. Now, Jacob, what was he making up? He was making up that soup with earthly things in there. He was already cooking with it. This is what YAHASHVAY sat upon. Now, see, Jacob Not saying that he knew that the birthright was going to be his, but Jacob or Yaakov, or we see that Yavad, Kaf, Alav, Ba'it, through the righteous hand of the Father into the hands of the mindset of source into the Ba'it, into the righteous family, right? All this going on with who is Messiah, what Messiah is sitting on, sitting meaning a proper resting place. You see, that's why it's good to break down all of this. Some might say, yeah, duh, I know that. Okay, cool, great. But it's great to see this in scripture and practice this in scripture, because in other places you're not going to really get things unless you know how to do that, right? So this is just a great way. And YAHASHVAY doesn't do anything with no purpose. It's just if you see it or not. That's why people wrote accounts of everything he did. Luke being one that really went into it, even being after Messiah left, type of thing. But Luke went back and writing what was going on in the times is occurrence and encounter. Everybody saw things differently. Everybody saw things differently. But let's keep going. Let's see, verse 9. Then he saith the woman of Samaria. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Yehoshaphat answered and said unto her, if thou knowest the gift of Allah, just like Jacob said to Esau, he said, hey, sell me a birthright. Not like, hey, give me that, but more like a hey. It was more like a bringing it to a forefront of mind, because it seemed like Jacob was already, in a sense, mature or accepting of what's going on. That's a better word. Accepting of what's going on, meaning that being mature is being able to accept it is what it is. Just look for Father. Basically, he's saying, what's up with your birthright? Like, come on now, you tripping, right? Like, bring it back to reality type thing. Let's keep going. Give me to drink. Thou would have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Verse 11. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Verse 12. Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Yehoshaphat answered and said unto her, whatsoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. Right? This happens, right? Searching for, being concentrated on that specific physical water in the well instead of seeing it metaphorically, instead of seeing it in a wild, quote unquote, way, instead of seeing it in a parable. This is what the Messiah was teaching everybody. To see things as not just the natural or not just the nature, but the super in it, of what it really represents. Many times, like he told the king, he's like, you got to be born again, right? He told everybody, like, it's not meant for you to know. He's like, why do you talk in riddles all the time? It's not meant for everybody to know. Because if you're not thinking, if you're not searching, if you're thinking that you're done, these things bring consequences. I'm not going to be the one to try to call what that is, but there will be consequences or sequences that go with that choice that come about that. This is what the Messiah was always doing. Like a metaphor is a kryptonite to the brain's natural defenses. You say a metaphor, I'll say right now, the sky is blue as the ocean. You have no choice but to picture the ocean. You have no choice but to think of it like that. But we in different times. We can dwell with the Holy Spirit because the Messiah left the Holy Spirit here after. That's Acts chapter 2. Versus before, the ancestors couldn't really dwell with the Holy Spirit, but there was so many miraculous things happening, so much happening. There was times to see the Spirit, be around Spirit, movements based off of Spirit, things like that. But that privilege was lost when Adam went forth with more than what he was supposed to. That's what knocked him out of that holy body. That's what knocked him out of that position, right? So now the second Adam, being the proper Adam, is bringing everybody back to position. You see there? See that correlation, that full circle? Let's keep going. Verse 14. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. Salah right there. That's exactly what he was saying. He was like, hey, you're worried about this water. I'm talking about the waters up inside of you. I'm talking about the mind, the body, the blood, how it flows. Like, this is deeper than just this water. You're worried about how I'm going to draw water from here. These things that you thirst on are earthly things. There's more to that. Being able to see things multiply, being able to see the nourishment in things comes from being able to see things in a different way. Comes from being able to see things in a metaphorical way. Right? Even the number of fish and the number of loaves, they break down to Hebraic character. That as well. Right? Let's go to verse 15. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. YAHASHVAY said unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. YAHASHVAY said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidst thou truly. Because who is the bride and who is the husband in that metaphorical sequence? Right? Israel would be the bride, or Yahasrael, or Yarashal, many different ways that's pronounced, being the bride to Messiah. That means the mindset, including the process of laws, including the connection of it. Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Even the Messiah maintained these holy days, right? So that's one thing I'm never saying. But I'm going more so the order of Melchizedek, like how the Messiah did, like how the Messiah always has been. You know, the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek was a character in the scroll that never really had a beginning date, never really had a death date, just always been away. Abraham, when he went to go get Lot, he went to the order of Melchizedek to get armies and to get help, and they helped him because of the order of Melchizedek, or Malachite Sadak, or the king being a king in the righteous Zion, or the righteous tilling for the hands, or being in the hand of protection of ABBA. All that coming together. Malachite Sadak. Malahazaadak. If you want to write that out. Right? Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Verse 19. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. After he said that. Because she was like, how'd you even know that? How'd you know that I've had 5 husbands, and then you say this one's not even, he already knew what she was about. So that made her realize, oh, like that metaphor right there. Even so too. Oh. Just like Jacob did to Esau or Asav. He made him hit that oh. But it's just the determining factor after that. Again, while I was saying before that some people hold on to these beastly things, the bit and bridle, or the bit and brittle. They hold on to the horses, the chariots, the rams, the goats, not the Jacobs, the sheep, things of this. They hold on to all these animalistic things instead of holding on to Abba. But that process is broken. This is just a lot of calling a spade, like we say sometimes, helping you be able to view things and see things, really taking yourself out of the muck more so, really taking yourself out of the stuff people are stuck in, so you can really see what people are stuck in, because you got to remove yourself in order to see when to step in, you know, when you're being led to step in and things of that nature as well. Let's keep going. Verse 20, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim, is the place where men ought to worship. So she missed the point that he was saying Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, or the place where the mindset is safely kept, right? She missed that. She missed that completely. The metaphor is still working, right? But then it clicks when she realizes something. Let's go to verse 21. YAHASHVAY said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet in Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, Salah, when the true worship, or the true worshipers, shall worship the Father, Spirit, and in truth. And shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, right? When we see that and, that's a at. That's a alav tav. So spirit and truth. That connects spirit, truth. That's where I got that concept from, because that stuck out. Because when you know Hebrew characters, you start reading these words, a whole different revealing comes to you. It gets deeper because this whole thing would have been written in Hebrew anyway. So in those times, you would have been able to see these characters and seen a deeper meaning as you're reading along. But now that it's in English, you're missing a whole lot deeper what's going on. You're missing a whole lot of what to call it. Like I don't want to say come up to some people, you can't be like, hey, you tripping, because they're not going to receive that. But if you come up to them like, hey, did you forget about your birthright? In a sense, just because I said that today, but just using that as an example, instead of saying that, they're like, what are you talking? Oh, okay, all right, because that's easier to receive than you tripping, and you don't even know what I'm going through. You don't even know who I am. You don't even, you know what I'm saying? There's a difference between that. Exactly, that arrow, right? There's a difference in that being received. So, understanding this, even seeing Abad Adam, even breaking that down, like you're seeing that's the opposite work of Adam, but still it's involving Esau, which still involves Jacob, which still involves Isaac and Ishmael and Abraham, and still going back all the way to Adam. But then, oh snap, the Messiah's been working with Abba this whole time, so he's stooping down. Oh, he's not sitting. What does that mean? Oh, when you sit, that means it's finished. But he's stooping, so that means he's in the same midst of what everybody's still in, the Esau versus Jacob, or the separation. Instead of seeing that Esau and Jacob are one coming from the same two becoming one, comes the one that becomes two, but could still be tight, could still be brothers, right? All that comes together once you realize and able to read this thing and see this thing as a full circle. Love is a full circle. Many emotions in love, a lot of calling things out in love, a lot of standing in love, a lot of watching, unfortunately, as love is going on. These are consequences of many sorts. Um, I'm grateful I wasn't the one back then watching the Messiah on the top. I couldn't do that, which is why I'm here in this time. Abba knew that. You see, he already knows what's going on, because putting me back then, me being me now, what me than me through, you know, that won't happen. But that had to happen. So therefore, this Stephen couldn't have been there. You know, couldn't have been there. Couldn't have happened. Not with me. No, it won't happen. And you know, maybe my life would have. You know, we could go deeper into that, but that's not even what happened. But to see things in full circle and to see nothing as vain is what I'm getting to, in that sense. But yeah, spirit, truth. Verse 24: Alakayam, a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Must worship him in the connectivity. Must worship him in everything. Right? And then what does it say? Verse 25. The women saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. Or I know the Messiah is coming, which is called HaMashiach, basically. Um, Altogether, I know that HaMashiach is coming upon us. They've been talking about that since Adam. You know? Just saying. Because it's been going through all the way through since Adam, since the beginning, right? Yeah, the second half of verse 25. When he has come, he will tell us all these things, or all things. When he says tell us all things, what does that mean? That means how to perceive, or how to perceive, or per situation see things. There was a reason why the Messiah appeared unto John in Revelation. There's a reason why it says in the beginning of the word is Abba, the word was with Abba, right? There's a reason why he came and walked amongst us. Step back from that, we see past, present, and future continuously going on. That this is just reiterating and precepting the whole concept, so you can know it's trustworthy, you know, but still take it, study it, apply it, question it, you know, but don't question it for the sake of questioning, as they say, because that is a sign of procrastination. And procrastination can quickly be ended by procrastination. By ending procrastination. That's what I meant to say. Procrastination can quickly be ended by just ending procrastination. Right? But right then, that metaphor set in her mind, and it broke open the understanding of what she was supposed to see. And I really feel like that's in the whole lump sum of what's going on. But a little preface to next week, what we're going to get into next week. We were talking about Esau and Jacob. But we're talking about how Esau is more relatable as we get prepared for a close. Esau is more relatable. Esau is often seen as an enemy, or Esau is seen as an enemy, but everybody is planted into some thorny grounds that they are nailed to. Everybody's planted into a position where they got to go through some things, but don't judge a person by what they're going through. See like the Messiah saw. Look at their surroundings is what I say a lot of times. Look at what they're surrounded with. Look at what they've been through. Look at their upbringing. Let them write the day for you. When I come up to a person, I don't go by what I think they are or who they are based off of me just coming upon them. Some of the wisest words have come from people that people would call homeless, but they're not homeless. They're in the righteous bite. Definitely. Zion, Dalet, Kaf, 19 always stood out to me. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But yeah, let that person write the story for you. Let that person write who they are, what they came with, what they've been through. Listen, you know. But then that little voice in the back of your head will say, you know, not yet, not this way. You know. It'll start coming out the way you're supposed to move. A lot of people I notice are very baffled of what they call my wisdom. And really it's like, I just be listening, you know. I've been the one that's been judged for a long time, and this comes with it, you know what I mean? Even with the name, right? Everybody's name that was spoken into this earth, just like everybody else in the Bible, their name has a purpose. Mine happens to be Stephen. So you don't think I took that into some consideration, right? Of course I did. But these things all mean something. They give you your walk of life. They give you your way. They give you a code to what you're going to go through, what you're expected to go through, what you're going to have to handle. So I know that through a lot of being in some thorny places, that I'm going to have to deal with a lot of things, but have to stay mature in the perfection of the mark all the time. Just so happened I became one that speaks with you. Some call me a teacher, but I just call it speaking with fam, right? But this just makes sense why I wouldn't do anything else but this, right? Yeah, they're definitely taken aback. Like, like I'm the dude that I'm definitely tatted up, like a lot. It just don't look like me, but just like Paul, Saul to Paul, same thing. So definitely see and definitely marinate with ABBA. Get a relationship with ABBA. Don't discard the law, but don't stop at the law either. A lot of people get caught up in wearing different parts of our culture. I'm just gonna say it like that to stay away from anything else, right? I'm not gonna accuse the brethren of anything. I'm not gonna touch Abba's anointed of any way. I'm not gonna cast a stone. But I am gonna give when my right cheek gets smacked and I look at the Father, I'm coming back to the right with the word. You know what I mean? Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Elder Tamara. Tav Mem Rosh. Exactly. See? You're going to know exactly what you got to go through, exactly what you're going to have to deal with through that. Right? And it makes everything so much easier. But then, that makes me apply it to everything else. You know? But just like with Esau, what we're going to go into next week is, we're going to think about now is who dealt with Esau? Who dealt with Edom? Who went around that, right? Yeah, all praises. Nothing is vain. It's only vain if you don't see it. That's being mad. Mad is not seeing action. Not seeing action at all. That's how you go mad. Because you're looking for action and you don't see it's there, so now you've gone mad. You've gone rapid. Trying to look for an answer. You know? That's how Esau was described too a little bit. Sometimes in some translations and things like that. I can see why they get there, but if it's not written, I don't really go with it. But that's still, you still got to study that too. You see how it's still, don't think you always know. You know what I'm saying? But I am intimate with the Father. I am close with the Father, as many, all of us here are that I see commenting. For sure, I could vouch for that. You know, but it's still ever changing. It's still ever changing. But let me get back to this. uh, Esau or Asav, a lot happened in Edom. A lot encountered Edom, right? Moses went around, had to go around Edom, because remember they escaped from Kemet or Egypt, and they met the land of Edom or the Edomites. He sent the messengers from Kadesh or Kadash, and they basically met them. Esau or the Edomites met them in the way with a big old army. They said, "No, that's not happening." But this also touched the Asav place, the Esau place. It was Moses, then Saul, then David, then Solomon, then Joram or Jehoram, then Amaziah, then Uzziah or Uzziah. We're going to go into all that next week. Again, well, I didn't want to go into, wasn't led to go into it today, but we're going to go through those as much as time permits per, I reckon, feeling, I guess. That's kind of how we go. We start at 12, go until, you know. But next week, we're going to go into what encompassed Esau. So these things can kind of help us see what we got to use, who we got to be, what we could expect to happen, what happens after that. We can see all the sequences based off of the interactions of Edom and Moses and Saul and David and Solomon and Joram and Amaziah and Uzziah or Azariah in some translations. Moses being a Levite, Saul being a Benjamite. Let's see, David being Judah, Solomon being Judah, son of David, right? Joram, Amaziah, all of them Judah, from David down to Amaziah, and then Uzziah, I believe, Judah as well. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because that was with Hadad. Yeah, Judah as well. So we'll see, like, it goes from a Levitical priesthood to a Benjamite. We studied that with the 12 patriarchs of the ravaging wolf, quote unquote. But I got to go back to those notes too, because we're going to see what we're going to bring back from there. We can also see those Benjamites like Paul, Saul, Hadassah, or Esther, all these Benjamites as well. Jonathan, best friends with David, stuff like that. But we're going to see what Moses did to Esau or Edom, how Moses handled Edom, how Saul handled Edom, how David, Solomon, so on and so forth handled Edom. And that's going to help us with our walk in life because it's still a full revolving circle. But yeah, I believe I wasn't led to really go. Oh, actually, Proverbs 11. Right. Yep. Proverbs 11. We're going to close with Proverbs 11. That Ravaka Abba was like, no, one little thing. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 11, and I'm going to close with verse 4. No, close with verse 5. And we're going to close with this thought. This is going to help out. This helps me out a lot during the week. But the thought of the riches of the world. The riches of the world would be considered an overflow. So imagine somebody of the world of that system has a cup. And they fill that cup up with their own water. Like we just was talking about earlier. And you come with righteousness and you pour into that cup. It's going to force the other water out, but there's going to be an overflow. So a lot of times these riches can get in the way of that cup being filled up with the righteous waters. That's a metaphor. Boom, bam. Right? So keep that in mind because The rich is what causes people to try to grab things and hold on to those things. Again, these things in the Bible and the scroll can represent personality traits of people. Not saying people are horses, etc., but these people have pride and built up things like that. That would perceive to be rams, and not be perceived to be a sheep, like that, etc., etc. But we're going to close this out with chapter 11 of Proverbs, verse 1 through 5. And we're also going to think about the waters in the beginning too, like we were speaking on about the creation of the waters above, the waters below, and then that dividing in the middle, or like the waters above and the waters below, and the dividing of the mind and the body in the physicality sense. But it says a false balance is an abomination to the righteous direction. A just weight is his delight. Pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with the lowly, wisdom. As like Jacob was to Esau, as in how Jacob was sitting there stooped because he was still cooking. Esau coming in standing, fresh out the field, hungry. Never said he stooped with them, but stooping being a place in a position of a work not being completely finished, right? Not sitting, but stooping, he was cooking, right? So in that whole position with Esau and Jacob, there was a pride that came in first, Esau. Then came a shame when Jacob brought up birthright. But then came wisdom from Jacob, still with that same notion, right? But still receiving verbally, right? How that concept worked. It goes deeper than that, but you can see all that sequence happens there. That right there applies to everybody in every sense of the whole word, of the whole scroll. Pride cometh, then shame cometh, and the last is wisdom. So what we can see now, at least a standing point to kind of work on is, okay, we're going to see, we got to start combating pride with something. Then, all right, there's shame that comes after that, because after we say something, they might potentially feel bad. But then we got to teach them that right there is where ABBA comes to help you, is in that lowly place. That's where the wisdom comes in, right? That's the whole concept of things, because like Elder Tamara, I saw her post that on Facebook, like, we're here to help you, help people. Or if somebody else is listening, that's the first time, we're here to help you, you know, help them come closer to Abba, help them come together. But a false balance is an abomination, right? Weights. Everything was weighted. The first weight, I reckon, was water. You know what I mean? So watch that water source. Watch what that concept is. Even that. Let me chew on that a little bit. Because gases do weigh. So, but gases is still water. That's still earth. You see how that all comes together? So it's kind of like a cover up too. Right? Let's keep going. Verse 3. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness, remember we talked about that, the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Riches profit not in the day of wrath. Riches profit not in the day of wrath. That overflow ain't going to help. Like in the day of wrath is when the righteousness comes in on that wickedness, right? So same cup scenario. Like you got Kool-Aid in the cup. Kool-Aid got a whole lot of sugar. You want to water it down. Boom, boom, boom. But you don't have enough space for the water, so it's still going to be a whole bunch of sugary Kool-Aid, right? And that's not going to profit them anything. But it's an overflow. So emotions, attitudes, snippiness, those are riches. Those are what people hold on to, and what they give. That's what's coming out, that overflow. But the cup runneth over. But cup runneth over with what? But truly, those that are wise know that you are wealthy and rich. That those that are in the word and in the culture, we know what that truly is. But this says riches, not wealth and riches, because wealth, you see the riches, and the riches you'll see wealth when you're in this properly. That's still physically, that's still mentally, that still goes in all different types of arenas over there. But riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. You see that colon right there? That means it's related. When you see a colon in the middle of a verse, that means it's related. So the righteousness delivers from death. That relates right to the riches profit not in the day of wrath. So we got riches of the beasts of the field. We can still apply it again. And then we got the righteousness and wisdom of the one that's cooking the soup, right? Some may call it a ruddy soup, even to the point where that's where Esau ran into the mountains. It's sort of like Jacob unknowingly knew what was going to happen the whole time. Let's go to verse 5. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. Let's go to verse 7. When a wicked man dieth, expectation shall perish, and the hope of unjust men perisheth. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked cometh in his stead. A hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered. So I'm going to stop there. That's what it was. We got to watch our words, but don't be succumbed to them. The difference between a hypocrite and a hypercrite. A hypo is under the threshold. A hyper is above the threshold. Hyper, like you're really hyper. You got too much energy. That's above the threshold, right? Hypo is under. So the hypo that's under the criteria, with his mouth destroyed the neighbor. So again, with those things that we're afraid to say, quote unquote, careful. Don't go run around just, but don't be succumbed to those things, because there's going to be words that you're going to have to use. Just like when I'm out here talking to people, I do use Jesus, I do use God, I do use these terminologies because, like we learned before, what we were reading, it was like if you use, it doesn't matter if you use 1,000 words, you use 5 words instead of 1,000 words. Use the words that they're able to understand. You're going to have to, because if I go in and say, they're not going to know what I just said. So what am I doing? I'm not helping anybody there. So the wisdom, especially of Solomon, because Solomon, we know, went back and forth sometimes, just like his father, just like everybody, calling our words shouldn't be a stumbling block, shouldn't be a rock, but bread. Exactly. It's up to us to where we place them in. We can set them, just like other gentlemen were saying. It just depends on where we set them. It's the spirit that you pour into a word. Now, there are correct correlations, right? There are correct correlations that help you understand deeper. But that doesn't mean that they're using the wrong words. It just means the spirit, because their prayers are still answered. I'm telling you, mine was, and I was in the back of a Baptist church some years ago, and I was still protected, still heard my prayers. So it's like, if ABBA knows all, if ABBA knows all, so how does he not understand somebody in a moment? How does he not understand what they're saying? Yeah, speaking in tongues, exactly, conscious, exactly. That's the better way to say it. It's like, how else you think he doesn't know? But the pride within ourselves won't accept that sometimes. The pride of disrespect and holding on to something so deeply and so closely because we're tired of disrespect. That's where in our community people get to bickering back and forth. Because no, the last thing you're going to do is take from me again. And that's not going to allow you to teach anybody. That's going to keep you around the same people. We're supposed to go out here and help people. And then those same people are stuck in that same little box at the same time. But we're gonna help them. We're gonna help them. But that's it, fam. I'm ready to pray it out. And I think I'm gonna play this song one last time. Hezekiah, those that know him, he got a song that's John 8:24, and we were definitely talking about that John 8, about Messiah stooping down and writing in the sand. And okay, John 8:24, it says, I said therefore unto you that ye shall die in your sins, for if ye believe not that I am, ye shall die in your sins. To those that don't believe that the Messiah can come in the flesh, that can be in the flesh, right? The same flesh that we're all born into, the same possibilities of perfection. That's the goal. That's the goal. So let us pray out. Abba, to die for your patience, your presence, your guidance, your Ravak, Hakodash, that guides and takes away the element of time for a little while, so that way things can properly be dispersed. So that way things can be properly chewed, even in the moment. So that way there's not a sense of time being rushed. So now that we see things outside of time and searching for a stronger and closer relationship with you, we will look for your signs and your ways of people. For you spoke truths into people, you spoke spirit truth into people, and now we see that things got broken up along the way, so people get caught in their truth and forget about the spirit, or people get so caught up in spirit that they forget about truth. The division is those that are able to speak and see metaphorically, and that is what we see now, and we are thankful for that revealing. And as we continue to dive in more on even what we're not intimate with, may it be guided properly in the proper time and not rushed. To die for showing your righteousness and showing your righteous direction in us, for giving us the opportunity to dwell with your Holy Spirit and to be able to see you for the circumference of just a little bit of what's in your hands. It still is so great. To die about for another rest in you as we continue to rest in you daily. For Shabbat was made for man, not man for a specific Shabbat. We should continue to rest, and as Messiah said, if our ox falls into a ditch on the Sabbath day, we leave our ox there. You give us a word that leaves us with no other choice but to agree or to be foolish. And that's the best way there is, for you saw it was Shabbat. Tada Abba, Sham your righteousness, Sham your Holy Spirit, Sham the walk of YAHASHVAY. We thank you for all these things. Aman. Aman and Aman. Well, fam, this will be it. That's it. That's all I got. I'm going to play this song, Shabbat Shalom, for those resting in it. We're going to keep on going next week. Come out with the post and everything like that. But, yeah, if you got any questions, just let me know. I'll post this in the Discord for easy access. It'll be here. It comes up as private initially, so I had to take it off private real quick and then just let it do its thing. But yeah, Shabbat Shalom. Uncle Brother Darius, Elder Tamara, Ak TJ, Big Bruder, everybody else that I can't see, that's been here. Oh, Cuzzo, Shabbat Shalom to you and yours, your husband. Y'all keep on being lovely. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play this selection, and I'm gonna continue to rest. I'm gonna go outside and spend some time outside a little bit. But yeah, it's been great. There you go. There you go.
If you don't believe you gon' die in your sins, he justified and got us a win. I said 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we can step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of free to those that believe to the very end. If you don't believe you gon' die in your sins, he justified and got us a win. I said 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on 10. He justified me, look where I been. Now when we step, we can step on them scenes. We set apart from the world, out of free to those that believe to the very end. The devil don't like this song. All by that blood on righteous song. We keep it laws, we fight this song. Look what they gon' say when that brightness come. The word may flash, that light is come. Justify me, we can tell the devil he behind me. Acts 13:39, see. Got the truth, you can never tell. By the grace of the Savior. I'm loving my neighbor. Bearing this fruit when I wake up. Yeah, we gon' go to the maker. Showing my faith by my work. I believe that he rose from the dirt. I believe that I'm free from the curse. Cover who was should have been in the hearse. Brought it out, but he got us say now that we got the faith. Shall we make void the law? Do you understand, Paul? Do you understand hustle time, man? You got the blood to cover it all. Set us apart, we keeping the law. We got a mediator when we fall. So those that believe in prison, we faultless. We know we need. If you don't believe, you gon' die in your sins. He justified and got us to win. I said 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on team. He justified me, look where I been. Then when we step, we just step on the scenes. We set apart from the world out of free. To those that believe to the very end. If you don't believe, you gon' die in your sins. He justified and got us to win. I said 53 verse 11 in. I'm preaching the gospel, got me on team. He justified me, look where I been. Then when we step, we just step on the scenes. We set apart from the world out of free. To those that believe to the very end.
I'm on. Shabbat shalom, fam. Ahava. I'll catch y'all next week. Abba willing. Peace.